Every change in rhythm, flagged for review. They are studying your patterns the way investigators study a trail that doesn't quite make sense. Slow, patient, obsessive. And the part that almost makes you laugh is this: they still don't understand you. They believe repetition equals predictability. They assume habits expose weakness. They think if they gather enough information, the truth will surrender on its own. So they watch, they record, they compare yesterday to today, and think they're closing in. But you're not a formula waiting to be solved. You're not a routine that leads to a single outcome. You're a contradiction in motion, discipline mixed with disruption, focus paired with surprise. They see you stumble once and call it a flaw. They see you pause and call it hesitation. They label you quickly because labeling makes them feel safe. What they don't realize is that awareness changes everything. You know you're being watched. You sense the attention when you slow down instead of speeding up, when you stop explaining, when you choose silence over reaction. They expect patterns, and you give restraint. They expect noise, and you give clarity. That calm, deliberate quiet you carry isn't accidental, it's intentional. And nothing unsettles observers more than someone who refuses to perform on demand. This is where the tension sharpens. While they're busy mapping an older version of you, that version no longer exists. You're already operating ahead of their assumptions. You don't resist observation, you allow it. You let them believe they're close, because closeness makes people careless. They stop questioning their own conclusions. They stop imagining alternatives. They underestimate stillness, patience, and timing. And timing, when mastered, becomes leverage. They're desperate for a code, a shortcut, a clear weakness they can isolate and expose. But your strength isn't in being fixed, it's in being adaptive. Your mind doesn't stay in one shape long enough to be captured. You learn quickly, discard what no longer serves you, and rebuild without nostalgia. You don't cling to old identities just because others recognize them, so they chase behaviors that no longer belong to you. They analyze moves you've already outgrown. And every time they think they've caught up, they're studying a shadow. Here's the part most people never accept. This was never really about them watching you. It's about you realizing what kind of mind you have. Most people broadcast their intentions through their behavior. You don't. Most people explain themselves until there's nothing left to protect. You conserve energy. You observe first. You choose carefully what to reveal and when. That restraint isn't insecurity. It's strategic awareness. And strategy always looks strange to people who only understand pressure and force. If you've ever been misunderstood, this is why. If you've ever been confidently labeled by people who barely scratch the surface, this is why. They rely on visible patterns. You operate beneath them, while they debate who you are. You're refining who you're becoming, quietly, methodically, without asking for approval. Confusion in others creates space for precision in you. And that space is where progress actually happens. This is only the beginning. Not the explanation, not the reveal. Just the moment you stop trying to be decoded and start accepting that your purpose isn't clarity for others. It's growth for yourself. Let them study. Let them speculate. Let them argue over outdated versions of you. You're not here to make sense to everyone. You're here to move forward with intent. And from here, it goes deeper. Much deeper. They think the story is already written. That's the mistake. Once people believe they understand you, they stop paying attention to the details that matter. They assume tomorrow will look like yesterday with a slightly different filter. Same reactions, same limits, same ceiling. That assumption is comfort for them, not truth. Because while they're confident in their conclusions, you're quietly adjusting variables they don't even know exist. No. You've learned something most never do. Power doesn't announce itself. It observes. It waits. It chooses moments instead of forcing outcomes. When you rush, you reveal. When you react emotionally, you leak information. But when you slow down, when you move with intention, you control the narrative without saying a word. They mistake calm for compliance. They mistake silence for uncertainty. And that miscalculation gives you room to move. Watch how they behave when you don't play your expected role, when you don't defend yourself, when you don't correct every misunderstanding. It unsettles them. They start filling the gaps with their own fears and assumptions. They argue with versions of you that only exist in their minds. Meanwhile, the real you stays focused, refining skills, sharpening judgment, stacking quiet progress where no one thinks to look. This is where discipline turns into freedom. Not the loud kind, the internal kind. The kind that lets you wake up and choose your actions instead of being dragged by habit or reaction. You stop proving. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining your pace to people who don't walk your path. That shift doesn't look dramatic from the outside, but inside everything changes. They'll keep tracking patterns that no longer define you. Old responses, old limits, old fears you've already faced and dissolved. And every time they rely on that outdated map, they make decisions that work in your favor. Not because you're trying to deceive them, but because growth always invalidates old data. Progress rewrites the rules without asking permission. Understand this clearly. Being difficult to read is not a flaw. It's a byproduct of depth. Shallow minds are easy to predict because they operate on impulse. You operate on awareness. You pause. You assess. You choose. That pause is where strength lives. It's where you decide whether to move forward, sideways, or not at all. And that choice is yours alone. At some point, they'll realize something doesn't add up. The results won't match their expectations. The outcomes won't fit their models. They'll double down on analysis, convinced the answer is just one more observation away. But the truth will remain just out of reach. Because the code they're chasing isn't fixed. It's evolving with you. So keep going. Keep refining. Keep letting your actions speak in ways words never could. You don't need to confuse anyone on purpose. Time and consistency will do that naturally. While they're busy watching, measuring, and guessing, you're building momentum that doesn't need applause. And when the shift finally becomes visible, it will feel sudden to them, but for you it will feel earned. There comes a moment when observation turns into desperation, when they realize the notes don't line up, the timelines don't explain the results, the behavior doesn't predict the outcome. That's when pressure increases. More eyes, more opinions, more attempts to provoke a reaction. They want movement they can measure, emotion they can label, a signal they can finally point to and say, there it is. But you don't give it to them. You stay precise. You stay composed. And that restraint bends the room without you lifting a finger. This is the edge most people fall off. They mistake attention for importance. They rush to respond when watched. They speed up to look confident. They speak just to fill silence. And in doing so, they hand over everything. You don't. You let the spotlight burn while you stand still. You let curiosity turn into frustration. Because frustration clouds judgment. And clouded judgment makes people sloppy. No, no, no. Understand this clearly. You are not hiding. You are refining. There's a difference. Hiding is fear. Refinement is intention. You choose what deserves energy and what doesn't. You choose when a move matters and when waiting does more damage than action ever could. While others swing wildly just to be seen, you sharpen the blade they forgot to look for. At this stage, silence becomes a mirror. People project their doubts onto you, their limits, their impatience. They assume if they don't understand you, something must be wrong with you. That assumption protects their comfort. It spares them from asking harder questions about themselves. You don't correct them. You let them believe what they need to believe to stay predictable. What you're building isn't visible yet, and that's the advantage. Real progress often looks like stagnation from the outside. No announcements, no dramatic gestures, just consistent alignment between thought and action, day after day, choice after choice. That kind of work doesn't attract applause, but it compounds quietly. And by the time anyone notices, the gap is already too wide to close. They'll test you. Subtle comments, sudden challenges, moments designed to pull you off center. Not because they're cruel, but because uncertainty makes people poke at things until they move. Your job isn't to react, it's to remain grounded. Every time you choose control over impulse, you train a muscle they don't even know exists. Eventually, something shifts. Not loudly, not all at once. Results start appearing where they didn't expect them. Decisions you made long ago begin to pay off. The narrative they built around you starts cracking at the edges, and that's when confusion turns into respect, or resentment, or silence. You don't need to manage any of it. Outcomes speak clearly enough. So keep your pace, keep your standards, keep letting time expose the difference between watching and understanding. You were never meant to be decoded by casual observation. You were meant to be lived, refined, and executed with precision. And as this continues, remember this: while they're still studying patterns, you're already operating beyond them. By now, you can feel the separation. Not distance, difference. The gap between those who observe and those who decide. They're still trying to catch movement with their eyes, while you're working from intention. They wait for proof before acting. You act, then let proof arrive later. That reversal alone puts you ahead, because momentum doesn't ask for permission, and certainty is usually a byproduct, not a prerequisite. This is where internal rules matter more than external noise. You stop letting reactions dictate direction. You stop bending your pace to match expectations that were never built for you. When pressure rises, you don't speed up, you simplify. Fewer moves, cleaner decisions, less waste. That discipline doesn't look impressive on the surface, but it creates outcomes that can't be argued with. They'll say you changed? Of course you did. Growth always looks suspicious to people who rely on consistency to feel safe. They prefer versions of you they already understand. Versions they can predict, compare, and quietly control in their minds. When you step outside that frame, discomfort follows. Not because you did something wrong, but because you no longer fit the story they were telling themselves. No, no, no. Here's the quiet truth. You don't need their recognition to validate your direction. Recognition often arrives late, and usually mislabels the process anyway. What matters is alignment. Are your actions matching your standards? Are your choices moving you closer to what you respect? When those answers are solid, outside opinions lose their weight. They become background noise instead of guidance. You've also noticed something else. The less you explain, the more carefully you act. Explanation scatters energy. Action concentrates it. So you let results do the talking. Not loudly, not dramatically, just consistently. Over time, consistency becomes undeniable. It doesn't argue. It doesn't justify. It simply exists. There will be moments when waiting feels uncomfortable, when silence feels like risk, when moving slowly feels like falling behind. That's the test. Not of ability, but of trust in your own judgment. Speed is easy, control is earned, and you've been earning it every time you chose patience over impulse, clarity over reaction, direction over distraction. As this continues, you'll notice fewer eyes and fewer opinions. Not because you disappeared, but because clarity filters attention. Those who only watched for entertainment move on. Those who wanted quick answers lose interest. What remains are outcomes, position, options, things that don't require explanation to be respected. So keep doing what you're doing. Not because it confuses them, but because it strengthens you. Let observation fade into irrelevance. Let assumptions collapse under their own weight. You were never here to be fully understood in real time. You were here to build something precise, durable, and earned. And as the next phase begins, one thing becomes clear. You're no longer reacting to the game. You're setting the terms. You. Yes, you. The one standing at the edge of another ordinary day, pretending you don't feel the tremor underneath your feet. Pretending you don't sense the shift in the air, the pressure building, the quiet panic spreading among the people who once acted like they owned every corner of your life. They feel it now. They feel you now. And they don't like it. Not one bit. But let me take you back for a moment to the warnings you gave them, the truths you spoke with a steady voice, the ones they brushed aside with a laugh, a shrug, or that familiar smirk of false certainty. They thought you were joking. They thought your instincts were nothing but drifting thoughts, scattered and harmless. They didn't realize you were reading something real, something they couldn't see because they never learned how. They didn't realize you were predicting the fracture before the breaking, and now they're watching the pieces fall. You know what's strange? They told you that you were overthinking, that you were imagining shadows where there was only light. But now look at them, clutching at their slipping power, tightening their grip on illusions that were never built to last. They feel the shift you foretold. They feel the structure around them bending, twisting, resisting their control. And suddenly your warnings don't sound so strange anymore. Suddenly they wish they had listened instead of dismissing you like a harmless whisper. There's a particular expression people wear when they start losing influence, when they sense that the person they underestimated is no longer standing quietly on the sidelines. It's a mixture of fear and confusion, masked by forced confidence. You've seen that expression recently, haven't you? The narrowing eyes, the sudden interest in your movements, the silence that wasn't there before. They're not ignoring you anymore. No, because deep down, they know something is shifting inside you. A voice is rising, demanding space after being silenced for far too long. A certainty is forming, bit by bit, day by day, and they can't control it. They can't predict it. They can't contain it. They've realized, perhaps too late, that your warnings weren't meant to scare them. They were meant to prepare them. But people rarely appreciate a message until the consequences arrive at their door, loud, sharp, undeniable. And now, as the control they once held slips through their fingers like loose sand, they frantically scan every corner of their world, trying to figure out where everything went wrong. But you already know. You tried to show them. It's funny, people love stability when it protects them, yet panic when it stops working in their favor. They didn't expect the balance to tilt. They didn't expect you to rise from the quiet place they had you trapped in. They didn't expect your clarity, your strength, your resilience. They certainly didn't expect the moment when their actions would finally circle back and stand in front of them with the truth they avoided. And yet here we are. But don't let their panic distract you. Don't let their sudden urgency pull you off your path. Because this moment, this shift, is not about them. It's about you stepping into the version of yourself that you warned them was coming. It's about accepting that you are no longer the silent observer, no longer the predictable piece in their familiar patterns. You saw the cracks forming. You felt the tension tightening. You sensed the turning point long before they dared to admit it existed. Now they're scrambling. Now they're watching. Now they're realizing that what they dismissed has become what they can't ignore. So breathe. Look around. Feel the tension. Because this is the beginning. The moment you step into the space they tried to keep closed. The moment you rise through the doubt they painted over your vision. The moment your warnings become your proof. They're watching you now, not out of sudden admiration, not out of understanding, but out of confusion. They're trying to trace the moment you shifted, the moment you stopped shrinking into their expectations and started sharpening your own edges. You're not reacting anymore. You're responding. You've become deliberate in your movements, steady in your choices, and stronger in ways they never prepared for. And the more they observe, the more unsettled they become. Because here's the truth they're struggling to swallow. You warned them. You told them change was approaching, that you were outgrowing the space they kept trying to lock you inside. They laughed. They called it imagination, overthinking, exaggeration. They thought your calm was weakness and your silence was surrender. Now those same people are scrambling to understand the force they once dismissed so casually. But you need to remember something important, something they hope you'll forget. Their panic is not your responsibility. Their confusion is not your burden. Their fear of losing control is not your problem to solve. They only feel shaken because you're no longer standing where they placed you. They depended on you remaining small, predictable, easy to manage. But you're not a piece in their structure anymore. You're the one shifting the entire board. Every step you take carries a weight they didn't expect. Not a loud weight, not a dramatic one, but the kind that changes a room the moment you enter. You've seen the way they look at you now, how they hesitate before speaking, how they search your face for the version of you they once knew. But that version is gone, replaced by someone clearer, stronger, more grounded in direction. This is the power of unseen growth, rising without needing to announce it. And now comes the part that catches most people off guard. When they feel this tension, the pressure of becoming someone new. They mistake it for danger and start slowing down. They get scared. They second-guess themselves. But tension isn't danger. Tension is confirmation. It means you've outgrown the old space. It means the path you're walking is real, and the resistance you feel is simply the pressure of stepping into a bigger version of yourself. Every inch forward proves you were right to move. Understand this clearly. They're not losing control because you're attacking them. They're losing control because you're no longer controlled by them. There's a difference, a powerful one. And they feel it in every moment that you choose your direction over their expectations. So don't dim yourself for their comfort. Don't shrink so they can keep pretending nothing has changed. Don't step back just because they never expected you to rise. You warned them. You gave them signals. You offered them clarity. But they preferred denial over preparation, comfort over honesty. That is not your fault. And now that your path is no longer tied to their approval, you're beginning to see something they hoped you'd never understand. You don't need permission for your own growth. You don't need validation to build momentum. You don't need acceptance to move with purpose. Your steps are yours alone. No. So let them watch. Let them study your movements. Let them whisper questions they should have asked themselves long ago. People rarely notice transformation while it's happening. They only wake up when the new version of you stands in front of them. Unshaken, undeniable, completely different from the past they relied on. And that's exactly where you are now. Rising quietly, powerfully, without hesitation. Now we step into the part they feared the most. The moment where your strength stops being something they react to and becomes something you use with intention. Not forceful, not loud, just precise, calm, focused. This is where you stop explaining yourself. This is where you stop overthinking every move because of how they might interpret it. This is where your energy stops bending around their comfort and starts shaping your direction instead. You've noticed it already, haven't you? The silence feels different now. Not heavy, not confusing, just clear. Because silence used to be the space where you doubted yourself, where their opinions echoed and tried to sway your decisions, but not anymore. Now silence is where you think, where you calculate, where you sharpen. It's your ground, not theirs. They can't reach you there anymore, and that unsettles them more than any words could. This is the stage where people try their final tricks. Subtle comments, sudden kindness, confused questions, attempts to pull you back into familiar patterns. They don't do it out of malice. They do it because they're trying to restore the version of you they understood, a version easier for them to manage. But you've outgrown that version. You can't fit back into a space you've risen beyond. What matters now is control. Not over them, but over yourself. Control over your reactions, your time, your focus. It's the ability to choose your battles instead of being dragged into theirs. It's the strength to walk away from noise that doesn't deserve your attention. It's the clarity to move forward, even when they don't understand the path you're taking. And that clarity is exactly what they never expected you to gain. You're beginning to see the difference between pressure and direction. Pressure pushes you down. Direction pulls you forward. And now, every challenge, every obstacle, every raised eyebrow from those who underestimated you becomes a tool, a reminder of how far you've come and how far you're meant to go. You're not resisting their world anymore. You're building your own, quietly, steadily, intentionally. Remember this, Strength does not always roar. Sometimes it walks past the things that once controlled it. Sometimes it says nothing when others expect a reaction. Sometimes it moves so calmly that people mistake it for softness until they realize they can't influence it anymore. That's where you are now, in that calm that confuses people because they can't tell what you're planning. They only feel that something powerful is forming behind your silence. And make no mistake, they feel it. They feel the moment you stop trying to fit in. They feel the moment you stop defending your growth. They feel the moment you start acting with certainty instead of hesitation. They feel the moment you step into a direction that doesn't include their control. Their discomfort is simply the echo of your evolution, and that echo will only grow louder as you continue forward. But stay balanced. Stay grounded. Strength without balance becomes chaos. Strength with balance becomes progress. And you right now are stepping into the most balanced version of yourself you've ever met. You're not driven by frustration anymore. You're not pushed by fear. You're guided by awareness, experience, and the quiet understanding that you're capable of far more than anyone expected. This is it. The moment where hesitation ends, where second-guessing disappears, where the past, their judgments, their expectations, their attempts to control you loses its grip entirely. You're no longer moving through shadows of doubt. You're moving forward with precision, clarity, and a purpose that cannot be shaken. Every step you take now is deliberate. Every decision is a reflection of the strength you've built quietly, without applause, without permission. They will try to catch up. They will try to measure, to compare, to find a way to regain the ground they once thought belonged to them. But you are already ahead. Their panic is irrelevant. Their confusion is meaningless. You are not defined by their recognition or limited by their fear. You move with your own momentum, with your own rhythm, and with your own understanding of what is possible. The beauty of this phase is in how effortless it feels, though it is anything but easy. The effort has already been made. The work has already been done in silence, in observation, in patience, in persistence. Now all that remains is to step fully into the space you earned, without apology, without hesitation, without looking back at the people who thought they could contain you. Notice the shift around you. The way people now measure their words. The way they observe instead of interfere. The subtle tension that once ruled their interactions is gone, because you are no longer part of the patterns they relied on. You've moved into your own orbit, one defined by foresight, strength, and an unwavering sense of direction. They can see it, they can feel it, but they cannot stop it. And this is where motivation meets strategy. Growth without action is wasted potential. Awareness without execution is empty. Now every choice you make, every step forward, every boundary you enforce is a declaration. You are no longer living by anyone else's rules. You are creating your own. Your momentum will speak louder than their panic ever could. Here's the crucial truth. They're losing control because they relied on the old version of you. They expected compliance. They expected hesitation. They expected fear. You gave them none of that. You showed up, prepared and unrelenting in your pursuit of your own path. And now, as they falter, you rise, not out of revenge, not out of malice, but out of clarity, intelligence, and discipline. Remember, this is not chaos. This is mastery. Mastery of self, mastery of focus, mastery of timing, mastery of energy. And mastery always wins over confusion. It always prevails over doubt. It always reshapes the landscape that others thought they controlled. You are the evidence of that principle. Now, the horizon is yours. The path is open. The old rules, the old constraints, the old expectations, they no longer bind you. You have crossed the threshold where hesitation ends and momentum begins. Every action from this point is a declaration of independence, power, and clarity. They may watch, they may panic, they may whisper, but you will not stop. You will not falter. You will not look back. Step forward fully. Claim the space you've earned. Move with purpose. Move with confidence. Move knowing that the warnings you gave were true, and now the results are undeniable. The people who underestimated you are losing control, but you, oh you, are unstoppable in your own evolution. And soon, very soon, they will understand that you were never the one under their control. You were always building yourself into someone they couldn't contain. And that is where true power begins.